Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayanim Amba Tvamanusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavai Vedai Sangha Padakramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidutsura suraganaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya namaha Om Shri Saraswatyai namaha Om Shri Gurubhyo namaha. So in the 14th chapter, we have heard from Bhagavan that this knowledge will take us and prepare us for this highest knowledge. That's why the 14th chapter comes before the 15th chapter, the 15th, which is the Purushottam Yoga, which is the highest teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. So this 14th chapter is a staircase that takes us to the highest. And that's what Bhagavan says, that this knowledge is essential for the highest. You cannot directly jump to a master's or PhD. You have to do bachelor's. So this knowledge prepares us for the highest knowledge. And then he talked about creation, how Prakriti and Purusha together, even though he says, I myself have appear as this whole creation, but for our understanding, he has talked about spirit and matter, and that is how this world appears. And that's how this world is created by the power of Maya, and the creator is Ishvara. And then he introduced the three gunas, sattva, which is purity and knowledge, rajas, which is passion, greed, occasionally can lead to selfishness, and tamas, which is laziness, heedlessness, pramada, moha, delusion, alasya, laziness. And he says all three can bind us. Sattva can bind us, as we have talked before, because of I get a joy when I'm in a sattvic activity, praying or meditating or listening to some, Mahatma talking somebody. And then I get attached to that joy, oh, the joy I had in the temple, why can't I have it all the time? And that is dependence, that I'm depending on something else, a situation for my joy. Or also by knowledge, in the sense that I can get so fascinated by knowledge that I want to keep acquiring, don't have time to contemplate, and also it can create arrogance that I know more than these other people, or I am more sattvic, I go to the temple more often. So sattva can bind by that. Rajas can bind, of course, as we know, by passion, greed, selfishness. I want more and more, and I want to possess, I want to fight. Even if I do dishonest things, it is okay as long as I get what I want. And it creates a spirit of competition where I alone matter and nobody else, I don't care. And that is rajas. And that's how you get bound to action by doing things just for the sake of acquiring more. And tamas, of course, binds us, as we know, by laziness, by heedlessness. I don't care. As long as I get, enough to eat, as long as somebody takes care of me, the government or somebody, I don't need to work. So, and then this person gets bound because he gets so used to people taking care of him, he doesn't feel he needs to work. So that's how all three, sattva, rajas, and tamas, can bind us. And then Bhagavan says that how do we know we are in sattva, rajas, or tamas? Which guna is predominant at this moment? Am I in a sattvic mode where I am, pure, or am my mind agitated, or is my mind lazy? And throughout the day also, an individual goes through sattva, rajas, and tamas. It's, like in the morning, if you have done some prayer or done some Gayatri mantra, your mind may be sattvic. And then as you go to work, start working, it becomes rajasic. And at the end of the day, you need some tamas to sleep. But if my mind is predominantly in sattva, that is good. Predominantly in rajas, it's not so good. And if it's predominantly in tamas, that is bad. So that's why they say the good, bad, and the ugly, the Western movie. So that's what he says. And then how do we know that I'm in sattva? When light of knowledge, light of consciousness shines. That means everything becomes clear to me. I'm able to understand things correctly. And that is sattva. And then when rajas is there, it is more lobha, greed, passion, selfishness. And in tamas, it is laziness. So why is Bhagavan Shri Krishna repeating these ideas? Gurudev says it very beautifully, that these rishis felt that the highest knowledge is very subtle, and the student is not there at that level. He or she is still studying to reach that level. So by repeated teaching and advice, the student's mind gets purified, gets straightened, gets connected, and ultimately connects to the teacher, to the highest. So by repetition, his old vasanas, his old ideas, his old concepts are substituted by new ideas, new vasanas, new concepts. So that is why we find that in the Bhagavad Gita also, these ideas are repeated. Because Bhagavan knows, like what he's told in the 3rd chapter or 4th chapter. Do we remember it? No, we don't even remember what he said last week. Forget about 5th chapter or 6th chapter. So that is why by repeated, what happens is this knowledge we become firmly established in this knowledge, like even going through medical school or dental school, or engineering or computer, the same ideas are repeated again and again. That's how I memorize anatomy. This is the saphenous vein, and this is the, inferior vena cava, this is the molar, this is the canine. So by repeated listening or law, the same cases are heard. So repeated listening is the only way to understand, to memorize, and then bring it into your life. So that's what we have heard. That's when a person is in tamas, he is in aprakasha, he is in ignorance, he is in darkness. Darkness does not mean he lives in a dark place. He is in the darkness of ignorance and the idea of I don't care. So today we'll try to cover 5 shlokas, which Bhagwan will tell us that what is the result of sattva, rajas, and tamas, and what happens to a person who lives his or her life predominantly in sattva, predominantly in rajas, predominantly in tamas. And Gurudev in his commentary talks about reincarnation, that as we know, we believe that this body is, either cremated or buried, and nothing happens to Atma, the consciousness, which is all pervading. But the subtle body, the mind and intellect and the abilities to see, the subtle body leaves this gross body, goes to higher or lower worlds. We'll talk about that today, depending on my predominant actions, whether I have been, whether I've done a lot of punya or papa, merit or demerit, and then the life's journey continues. So whatever I have reached, if I have done a lot of good karmas, I will be born. We will see today where I will be born. And if I have done bad karmas, so it is all a result of my action. So the theory of karma works not only in this life, like we tell our students, if you study well, you will get a good grade. If you don't study, we tell our children, you won't do well in life. So same way, the teacher is telling us, the rishis are telling us that if you do good karmas, you will have good result, you will grow further. So this is where we have come so far. Now today we will talk about what happens to an individual who leaves this body. Where does he go? And then what happens? What is the result of sattva, rajas, and tamas? Shloka number 14. Chapter 14, shloka number 14. Yada sattve pravriddhetu.
Yada sattve pravriddhetu.
Pralayam yati dehabhrita.
Pralayam yati dehabhrita.
Tadotamavidan lokan.
Tadotamavidam lokan.
Amalan pratipadyate.
Amalan pratipadyate.
So together, yada sattve pravriddhetu. Pralayam yati dehabhrita.
Dehabhuta
Tadotamavidan lokan.
loka
Amalan
amalan
pratipadyate.
pratipadyate.
So yada means when. Sattve pravriddhetu. Sattva when it is increased. Sattva pravriddha means completely gone up a lot. Vriddha means to go up. Vriddha here does not mean old. Vriddha means vriddhati, goes higher. Pravriddhe means goes very high. So person dies in lot of sattvic state. 2 for sure indeed. Pralayam yati. Pralayam means death. Yati means so an individual who goes to death. That means who leaves this body. Deha bhrita. Who leaves this body? The embodied one. Deha bhrit means the subtle body that leaves this gross body. At the time of death, as we said, the subtle body leaves and goes to different worlds. So where does it go? So Bhagavan says when person leaves this body in sattva, tada, then uttama vidan lokan. So what kind of worlds? Uttama vidan, the knowers of the highest. That means the devas. That means heaven, the worlds of the devas, of the gods. Uttama vidan lokan. And how are these worlds? Amalan. They are spotless. They are clean, spotless. Pratipadyate. Pratipadyate means he attains. He attains to the worlds of purity, spotlessness, cleanliness, the highest world. That means he goes to the higher worlds, heavens. And why don't we chant 15th also, please, together? Then we'll do commentary on 14th and 15th together. Rajasi pralayam gatva.
Rajasi pralayam gatva.
Karma sangishu jayate.
कर्मसङ्गिषु जायते
तथा प्रलीनस्तामसि
तथा प्रलीनस्तमसि
मूढयोनिषु जायते.
मूढयोनिषु जायते.
So as we said, when person dies in sattva, he goes to the higher worlds. How about rajasi pralayam gatva? Pralayam again we mean death. When there is complete laya means when the body perishes in rajas. So person who has lived his life in rajas, he goes to karma sangishu. He joins people who are involved in doing karma, actions, lot of activities, doing constantly and acquiring, possessing. So he is born in such a place and he goes to such worlds. That means he comes back to earth, which is the karma bhumi. And tatha pralinaha tamasi. And those who in tamas leave this body, mudha yonishu jayate. Mudha yoni means the lower worlds or the lower beings. So he could be born, he would, after death, he or she would go to lower worlds, maybe like to different hells, all this patal, bhutal, all those different deaths. Or a person in sattvic doesn't all the way can go to heaven. He can go to, Gandharva loka, Pitru loka, so the higher worlds or the lower worlds. And Mudha Yoni also means lower species, means a person who has lived his life in tamas, in selfishness, laziness, and not doing anything. He could be born in his next life, even as an animal or a bird or a fish or a buffalo. It does not mean that once I have become human, ho gaya. No, not like that. I have to utilize this human birth in the right way. Otherwise, I can go up or down. So what is important, what they say is that what is the last thought? That's why Bhagavan Sri Krishna, even in the 8th chapter, he says that whatever is your last thought at the time of death, you will go there. They say, oh, then that's very easy. I will do whatever I want. And then at the last minute, I'll remember God. But first of all, we don't know what is my last breath. When am I going to, how long am I going to live? And also at that time, my mind may not be ready. That's why even in Mukunda Mala, the Raja Kulashekar, who is the author, he says, oh, my tongue, please keep on repeating the name of the Lord while I'm able to, because after at that time, at the last breath, I may be my mouth may be filled with all this pus and mucus and, when you can't breathe and all this, and I may be choking in my own fluids. At that time, I may not be able to remember God. So, O tongue, please keep remembering Bhagavan Sri Krishna all the time, as much as you can, because we don't know when our last breath is. So this reminds me of a story. I had told that a few years ago in the Gita class at the mission, but a lot of them are new, so it's worth repeating. So there was this very rich man who had acquired a lot of money and very, very rich. And as you know, to become very, very rich, you can't do it all honestly. You have to have cut some corners. Anyway, he was very rich and multi-millionaire, and he got sick and he was not doing well. He was in the hospital and doctor said he has end stage, cancer or whatever. And so nothing can be done. So maybe he might have a few hours, maybe a day. So he tells his children, take me home. I don't want to die in the hospital. So they bring him home. And the doctor says, maximum 5-6 hours. I don't think he will live longer. He could hardly breathe. And so the children thought, the last thought, they say, so what they do, they call 11 priests. And they tell them for next 5-6 hours till our father leaves, keep chanting Bhagavad Gita. So these priests are doing beautiful chanting of Bhagavad Gita, and they are all paid to come. And so they are chanting and the atmosphere is so beautiful and children are very happy. And suddenly this man, barely he can hear. And he said, well, what is this going on? So he calls his oldest son. He said, what's this? He just barely can talk. He says, Father, we have called 11 priests, to chant the Bhagavad Gita for you. He said, how much are you paying them? He said, well, 1,000 rupees each. 11,000 rupees? He thinks, and in that he dies. So his last thought is not of Bhagavad Gita chanting. His last thought is of 11,000 rupees. So the point is that whatever you have thought will be your last thought. So start thinking of God. As Kulashekar says, oh tongue, please keep repeating the name of the Lord. And whatever form of Lord you love, just worship him, chant his name as or her name, Mother Saraswati, Durga, doesn't matter. And based on that, then our last thought automatically will be good. And that's what we said. We go to different locus. And the example they give is like if I'm moving, forget about going to locus, but here also, say if I'm moving from Bakersfield to, say, Phoenix, and I love to play tennis. So what will I look for? A place where there is a good tennis club near my house. Or if I love surfing, then I say, I'm not going to move to Phoenix. My company, if you give me a job in San Diego, I'll take it so I can go surfing. Or if I'm in spirituality, then I will find out, where should I take a house close to the, where there are some spiritual discourses. I don't want to drive 90 minutes to. So whatever is my main desire, that is the kind of place I will choose. And that will determine my next birth. Not only my next birth, even my next move from Bakersfield or from LA, if I want to move somewhere. So I think this, I was reading that this Scrooge, in Christmas Carol, it's a very famous play, which they always play on Christmas. And so there was this businessman called Ebenezer Scrooge, who was very crooked, very dishonest. He cheated everybody who came. And Christmas Eve, he was sitting in his, in front of his fireplace, smoking his pipe. And suddenly he hears a noise and he sees the ghost of Marley. Marley was his business partner who was as dishonest as him. And he saw Marley, and Marley had all chains around him, chains around his hand, chains around his feet, chains around his neck. And he was making noise he said, Marley, what happened to you? He said, these are chains I created myself. He says, how? He says, every time I did a dishonest deed, ek kadi, I made one link and then a second link and a third link. So these chains are created by me. And every time I have cheated somebody, I have done dishonest, I have added more and more chains. So you please don't do that. I know you and I were partners. And Scrooge suddenly realized, he says, yeah, that is true. I don't want to live a life in chains. So morning he wakes up, he's a new man. And he invites all the children of the village, gives them gifts on Christmas Day and gives them candy and food. And it starts becoming, he still does his business, but he does it more honestly. He gives whatever he can. He helps people. So that is what they say, that in life we have opportunities to change. And this knowledge also should give us the similar opportunity to change. And whatever you sleep with, you wake up in the morning. Like if you have left dishes in the sink and not washed them in the morning, you wake up, will the dishes be magically done? No, I have to in the morning do it. So whatever you have left in this life, that will stay in the next life. Just as from one night, if you sleep and wake up in the morning, so same way, death is nothing but a long sleep. So wherever you have left, you will get that in the morning. Gurudev says it very beautifully. A lawyer goes to sleep at night and he knows law. In the morning, he's not going to become a doctor and write prescriptions. No, a lawyer goes to sleep, he will wake up a lawyer. A doctor will wake up a doctor. So that's why it is very important to know, so that my life should be evolution, not devolution, going upwards. And how do I go upwards? Based on my karmas and based on my vasanas. If I have selfish desires, If I have negative karmas, I will go downwards. If I have positive, I will go upwards. Another beautiful example I was listening is like, suppose there is a tamasic, rajasic, and a sattvic person, right? And they all build a car. Like these children build that car out of wood. A tamasic person will collect the wood and he will go to sleep. He say, forget it, I don't need a car. Or if he builds a car, it won't move. Because why? It's useless. It's just stuck. Rajasic person, he will build a wooden car like these children build, but he will put a rope to turn it, but he'll put no brakes. Let it keep going faster, faster. That is a Rajasic life. Keep working, keep doing. And you tell him, where are the brakes? There are no brakes. I just have to put my feet down and I can stop. While a sattvic person will control the movements of his life. And we'll talk about that in one of the later shlokas. Also, the kind of family I get in my next birth. If I have died a tamasic person, then what will happen? I'll be born in a tamasic family where, mother is on drugs, father is gone somewhere, and nobody works, and the drugs, alcohol is being used. A Rajasic person will be born in a family where there are business and money and power and competition and violence, all those things. And a Sattvic person will be born in a family where, their people are caring for each other. There is spiritual discourses going on. There is beautiful chanting going on in the morning. So the kind of family I get also will be. So if I have been born in a particular family or in a particular country, it is because of my karmas. Like from India, we came to the US. It was because of particular karmas, particular desires. This reminds me, and these things show up from childhood itself. We have heard of Raman Maharishi, Shankaracharya ji. There's another beautiful story about this Saint Teresa of Lisieux. It is Lisieux. She was in Italy and she was a born Roman Catholic. Her parents were very devout Catholics and gave her all the best of knowledge that they could. And by 5 or 6, she said, I want to become a nun. I don't want to anything else. And so soon as she finished high school, she gave up everything. And by age 17, became a nun. And of course, throughout these years, she was studying all the Bible and the spiritual teachings. And she only lived for 7 more years, from 17 to 24. But those 7 years were filled with service. She would go to the poorest neighborhoods where all the criminals were and the drugs and the worst of the homelessness, violence. She would go serve them, take care of them. But not only that, but she had so much knowledge that she started teaching the junior nuns who came. She would teach them. She wrote books. She wrote so many articles. So in 7 years, she accomplished what people may not have accomplished in 70 years. And by age 24, she got TB because she was going in all these neighborhoods. And in those days, in the 19th century, there was no medicine for TB. TB means death. And so one morning she woke up coughing blood and she said, my time has come. And peacefully, and during those 7 years, she had visions of Jesus, becoming one with him. And she was made a saint, very rapidly after her death, within 28 years. Normally, they say you have to wait 50 years. So the point is that it doesn't matter how many years you live in your life. They say how much life you put in your years, what you accomplish. So that is what the essence of. And I also heard that even in animals, there are sattvic animals, rajasic animals, and tamasic animals. Like a cow, she's sattvic. She only eats grass, but she gives you the most delicious milk. She gives birth to the bull, which was used in farming. Even after death, her skin is used, her horns are used. So cow, sheep, goats, these are considered sattvic animals. What are rajasic animals? Lion, tiger, wolf, they are ready to kill. And tamasic animals are like scorpions, poisonous animals, or like buffalo, or like a hippo, they are just sitting there. Buffalo, even if a fly is there, he won't move to move it. He'll just wiggle his tail. If the fly moves, fine. So even that's what they find in all creatures. There is sattva, rajas, and tamas. So now we shall see that this is what happens after death. Now we shall see what is the result of sattva, rajas, and tamas. So today these ideas will be repeated, and from next week, Bhagavan will tell us how to go beyond. So this topic of gunas will conclude with 18 verses. Then he will talk about how to go beyond the guna. So these, he's giving us the symptoms of the disease and signs. And from next week, how to become healthy, how to go beyond gunas, and who is the gunati, and how does he or she live in the world. So we'll chant number 16, shloka number 16. Karmana sukrityasyahuhu
Karmana sukritasyahu
Satvikam nirmalam phalam
Satvikam nirmalam phalam
rajasastu phalam dukkham
Rajasastu phalam dukkham
ajnanam tamasah phalam.
Ajnanam tamasah phalam.
Together. Karmana sukritasyahuhu Satvikam nirmalam phalam rajasastu phalam dukkham ajnanam tamasah phalam. So karmana sukritaha. So one who has done good actions. Ahuhu. When Bhagavan says ahuhu means they say. Who say? The great rishis of the Upanishad. So Bhagavan all the time doesn't say I say it, but he quotes all the great scholars in the past who have said that when a person does good actions, then his actions become sattvic, and the result is nirmala, spotless, means purity. And rajaha, rajasastu, rajaha, too indeed, phalam is dukkham. The end of rajas is dukkham. They say, but don't you say rajas means acquiring everything? Yes, but Bhagavan says the end result is sorrow, and ajnanam tamasa phalam. And the result of tamas is ajnanam. It is ignorance. So, as we said, when a person lives in sattva, then his mind is pure and he has very clear understanding. And he sees the love, his life is love, compassion, kindness, unity, seeing the oneness. While a person living in rajas, his idea is, what can I get? And he acquires, no doubt, he acquires a lot. But ultimately, the result is sorrow, because if you have acquired things dishonestly, like we heard about the Scrooge and his partner Marley, ultimately we are building the chains of our own sorrow, because whatever I have acquired, the karmas will come to me. And secondly, when I have to leave it, either whatever is we get in this world is temporary, and sooner or later I have to leave it. And when I leave it, there will be sorrow, or when it is taken from me, there will be sorrow. And then there will be competition, there will be jealousy, there will be anger, there will be hatred. So the result of rajas, temporarily it may look like joy, but the end phalam is sorrow. And tamas, of course, we know, that is, ignorance, and these people are very insensitive also. They don't care about others' feelings, because they don't even care about their own feelings. They just sit there and do nothing. And that is the result of jnanam tamasa. This I was reading, think about people who work in tobacco, people who make cigarettes. Is that rajasic or tamasic? Probably pure tamasic, because they are making money, but they know that this product is going to create sorrow. Person will smoke, will get lung emphysema, cancer. And now same thing is happening with marijuana. People think, oh, it is legal, it is safe. but it is a highly addictive drug which interferes with the brain of these youngsters who are smoking marijuana, pot. They think it is legal, but it is a highly dangerous drug. It is addicting and ultimately leads you to trying other drugs like heroin and things like that, fentanyl. That all starts from cannabis. And it's so funny. I was reading somewhere that the sign that if you call for cannabis, they deliver within 1 hour. Within 1 hour, the best cannabis. You just call them. But if you have a robbery or a break-in in your house and you call the police, one day, you're lucky even if the police comes in one day. So it's sad that we can get cannabis in 1 hour, but you can't get police. So that is the problem, and that is tamas. So what do we do? So Gurudev says in his commentary, he says, one is you can change your thinking. From tamasic, you make it rajasic or sattvic. Or if that is difficult, you change your actions. Start doing more sattvic actions. Start doing prayer, meditation, chanting, reading, and slowly as your actions become purer, your thoughts will become purer. Or you can purify your thoughts and change your actions. So they work together. So you listen to good things and start doing good things, and gradually you develop viveka. You develop discrimination through sattva. What sattva is that? It is viveka, which discriminates between right and wrong, between what I should do, what I should not do, what is temporary and what is permanent. So that is what they say, that you gradually change your actions and change your thoughts. And if you find that my mind is a lot in tamas or rajas, slowly develop sattva. Sattvic actions, sattvic thoughts. We'll do verse number 17. Again, what does sattva attach to? And what is rajas and tama attached to? We can chant shloka number 17. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam.
Sattvat sanjayate jnanam.
Rajaso lobha eva cha.
Rajaso lobha eva cha.
Pramada mohau tamasaha.
Pramada mohau tamasaha.
Bhavato jnanam eva cha.
Bhavato jnanam eva cha.
Together. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam. Rajaso lobha eva cha. Pramada mohau tamasaha. Bhavato jnanam eva cha. So sattva gets attached to knowledge. So sattva is functioning through knowledge. Rajas through lobha, greed. Eva. Eva means definitely. If you live a life of rajas, you will have greed, selfishness. And tamasa has pramad and moha, delusion and heedlessness. I don't care. And then what happens? Bhavataha ajnanam. That avagraha is a. Bhavataha ajnanam evacha. So the tamasic person lives in ajnanam. So how does this knowledge come? So we have heard the word chidabhasa before also, that the light of consciousness shines in the mind and intellect. And if a person has sattvic thoughts, then that light is clear. If it is rajasic, it is agitated. And if it is tamasic, it is dull. So a rajasic person lives in wisdom, right understanding. He has heard the scriptures from the Guru, he or she applies them in their life. So they live a life of unity, oneness, and they see equality. They don't see, oh, I am superior to somebody else. In sattva, there is one Bhagwan in everybody. There is one consciousness. Everything has manifested from that. So that alone is. So in the path of bhakti, it is my Krishna alone that is in everybody. Or in the path of knowledge, it is one Atma, one consciousness, and this body, mind, and intellect are expression of that one. So he sees oneness, he sees unity, while a Rajasic person, again, greed and what can I get, and Tamasic person, delusion. So Rajasic and Tamasic both have the idea, me first, everything I should get for myself. Difference is Tamasic doesn't do anything about it. He wants things. If it comes, he will accept it. But a Rajasic person will go out and get it. So I was listening to, I remember there's Saint Pranaji who has written this Bani. I think Moini auntie must have heard about that. But there is one prakarna, one teaching where he says gun ferai hai. So what you do is turn your negative gunas into positive. So if you have a lot of greed, you say instead of greed for money, let me become more greedy for knowledge. Let me read more. If I have done one mala today, let me do 2 malas tomorrow, 3 malas. So you turn your greed. If you have anger, instead of getting anger at other people, get angry at yourself. Why am I not able to get up in the morning and meditate? Why do I sleep till 7, 8 in the morning? No, I should get up early in the morning. I should meditate. I should, remember God. So all these negative tendencies can be turned towards positivity. So anything that is negative, you can turn it positive. If I have, greed, if I have jealousy not in the sense, but if this person can get up in the morning and meditate, why can't I do it? So turn these guna firai hai. You can turn all your negatives into positive by turning them towards God. That's what Bhagavan says. Give me even your worst desires, I will purify them. That's why Gurudev says it in his teaching. He says, turn your mind in devotion towards the Lord. He will purify it and return it back to you. So that is the result. And that is how you change your life. You change your mind, because we say, oh, I have lived all this way for last 60 years, 70 years. But it is never too late. Once you have decided that this is what I want to do with my life, this is how I want to go, this is what I want to accomplish, all you have to do is then put your mind to it, just as we have put our mind to the world, being extrovert, wanting this, start becoming introvert. Instead of looking for happiness outside, look for happiness within. Instead of looking for comfort outside, look for comfort within, because ultimately all the happiness, the joy, the comfort, everything is within. That's what they say. Once you have found happiness within, then you're not begging the world for happiness. You say, I am fine, and then if the world gives me happiness, fine. If the world doesn't give me happiness, I am still fine. So that's why we find in the lives of these saints, all of them, whether it is Mirabai, whether it's Tukaram, whether it's Jesus, whether it's Narsi Mehta, all of them had so many problems in their life. They lived in poverty, or society didn't accept them, but they were ready to withstand all problems, all difficulties. And even Puja Gurudev, when he first came and started teaching this knowledge, the priest class would not accept him. They say, you cannot give this knowledge in English. You cannot teach Upanishads to just people on the street. This knowledge has to be preserved for Brahmins, for particular caste, for particular, Sanskrit only it should be taught. And Gurudev said no. And he had a lot of opposition in the beginning. People were opposing. He said, no, I am here to give this knowledge. And Shruti will protect herself. One who is qualified will get this knowledge. One who is not qualified won't come back. That's why in Upanishad class, very few people show up. But if you have a rock concert, like maybe Shah Rukh Khan or, something like that, people will buy, $1,000 tickets to sit in the front row, and it will be packed. If it's a 10,000 capacity stadium, it will be sold out. But if Swami Tejomayanandaji, Swarupanandaji comes, 250 people we can barely gather. So, because this knowledge is not that easy and people don't think that it is practical. We just heard from Swami Ishwarananda ji. This knowledge is useful. Nahi hai. It's not practical. It's meant for later on. It's not going to help you. So people either don't think it is practical, or don't think it is useful, or think maybe afterwards, or it's for sannyasi, or maybe after 70, 80, then we'll think about it. Abhi to mere khane khelne ke din hai. It's my time to enjoy and eat and drink and have fun. This is for people who are useless. So that's what we heard from Vedanta Madhuryam. Guruji says it very beautifully that people don't see the benefit of this knowledge because it's not direct. See, like if you study and you do a bachelor's, you get a degree, then you do PhD, then you're called doctor, or you finish medicine or law, you can practice and you can make good money. But if you have progress spiritually, they'll say, what have you got? You have been going to lectures for 10 years. I don't see any change. Because the result is not directly perceptible. You can't catch it in your hand. What did I get out of it? But there is a very slow, subtle change in the process of thinking. How I am thinking about the world changes. An outside person will say, this guy has been going for last 10, 15 years. Waise ka waisa hi hai. I don't see any benefit. But Guruji says that if he hadn't gone for 15 years, where would he have been? See, nahi gaya hota to how much down at least he has maintained the same. So the point is that this knowledge definitely will help. That's why Gurudev says, path of spirituality is a one-way street. Once you get in there, you can't get out because then the knowledge will pull you. Bhagwan himself will say, okay, this devotee of mine is coming to me. I'll make sure that I've sent him a guru, I send him the knowledge. And then Bhagavan says, then it is my responsibility. He says, all you have to do is turn your mind towards me. Then I make sure that I remove all obstacles. That's why Ganesh ji said to be remover of obstacles. Because he says, once you remember me, then all obstacles I remove. So that is the beauty of this knowledge, that it may not be very obvious, but it is subtle. You can tell at the end. It is subtle, it gradually will transform our thinking. We'll do the last shloka, the 18th shloka today, as to what is the final result of this knowledge. So shloka number 18. Urdhvam gachanti sattvasthaha.
Urdhvam gachanti sattvastaha.
Madhye tishtanti rajasaha.
Madhye tishtanti rajasaha.
Jaghanya guna vrittisthaha.
Jaghanya guna vrittisthaha.
Adho gachanti tamasaha.
Adho gachanti tamasaha.
Together. Urdhvam gachanti sattvasthaha. Madhye tishtanti rajasaha. Jaghanya guna vrittisthaha. Adho gachanti tamasaha. So here Bhagavan is saying what is the ultimate result and what happens if you live your life in sattva, rajas or tamas. So urdhvam means upward. Gachanti means they go, plural, gachanti. Sattva sthaha, those who are established in sattva. Sthaha means station. So those who are firmly established in sattva, they go upwards. Madhye tishthanti, in the middle they stay. Who? Rajasaha. So those who live their life in rajas, they stay at the same level. They neither go up nor go down. They keep same thing. They keep on doing. Sattvic goes up, rajas remains at the same level, And Jaganya Guna Vritti. Jaganya means, it's a very strong word, means the lowest guna. It is the lowest quality. And because of that, Vritti means the lowest actions. Sthaha means they are firmly established in the lowest guna and the lowest activity. So their thinking is low, their desires are low, and their actions are low. So adha means below, gachanti tamasaha. So sattvic people go upward, rajasi stay at the same level, and tamasic people go downwards. As we had said, it could be in future life or in this life itself. A person who lives a life of sattva, his mind will become purer, will become more clear, his understanding will become clear. Rajasic person will be agitated all the time, his mind is disturbed and possessive, and then a tamasic person goes downward. So the example they give is like in a train. In India, if you travel in a train, there's first class, regular, and then the third class. So the sattvic person is traveling in the first class, not because of his own karmas. Rajasic in the second and tamasic in the third class. So his life is worst. And Gurudev also describes very beautifully in his commentary. He says that you are at the ground floor, and that is tamas. And so you climb one flight of stairs, you come to the middle level. That is rajas. And then you climb further, that is sattva. So a rajasic person will remain at the middle level. Tamasic will stay at the lowest. The sattvic person will stay at the highest. And from sattva, then he can go out and become free. Then he sees the whole world in front of him. He goes out into the terrace and maybe he can take a balloon and fly up. So the point is that from sattva, you can evolve to going beyond sattva, and that we'll talk next week. I heard a very beautiful story. So there was this sadhu, you're wearing orange clothes, and they called him Mad Narayana. His name was Narayana, and people thought he was mad. So what he used to do is very interesting. There was this small hill and there was this huge rock that he used to have a hard time to push. He would push. And after start in the morning and late afternoon, evening, with great difficulty, he would take it to the top of that little hill, and with great effort, sweating in the heat of, summer and all, he would be doing that. He would take it to the top of the mountain, and then he would watch there is nobody down, and then he would release that rock, the stone, and it would come and hit. And then he would laugh, ha, ha, ha. It is very hard to go up. It is very easy to go down. And then second day, he will do the same thing. Every day, he will do the same. And people thought this guy is crazy fool. Every morning, he is doing this and every... So what he was doing was teaching a lesson to himself and to everybody else. To go upward is hard. If I want to evolve, it needs a lot of effort. To go down, it doesn't need any effort. You want to start, okay, drinking, drugs, or whatever, lower things. To go down is very easy. You stop doing good things. I used to get up in the morning and meditate and do puja. You know what? Forget it. God aate nahi hai. God doesn't come. So I heard very recently that agarbatti, in India, agarbatti is used either to attract God or to drive away mosquitoes, right? By lighting agarbatti, mosquitoes. He said, problem is agarbatti I light, but Bhagwan aate nahi or machhar jate nahi. He said, God doesn't come and mosquito doesn't go. So I've stopped lighting agarbatti. So that's what, people will give up. I had also, so that is the problem, that, people think that doing these good things, I don't see any result. So very quickly they give up and they go back to their old habits. I used to meditate, I used to do satsang, but now it's okay. I'm just going to have fun, sleep late, have party. So joy, as I said, it can be in drugs, in alcohol, that is tamasic, joy in acquiring, becoming rich, becoming powerful, or joy can be sattvic in pure activities. So the example they give is like there is a driver and there is will and desire, free will and desire. So there are two passengers in the car. One is free will and one is desire. Desire is the driver, free will is sitting. In tamasic, they are both sleeping. He has desire, but he doesn't want to do anything. So the car is not in rajasic, the desire is driving the car and free will is sitting in the back. And he said, I don't want to go there. He says, come on, let's go. There's a party going on. Let's have some drinks. And then he said, let's go to the mall. Let's buy this. Let's buy that. Desire is driving. Will said, I don't want to more things. My closet is full. He said, no, look, there is a sale going on. You can. So desire is driving and free will becomes a helpless victim of that. In sattvic, both have the wheel. Desire is driving. It's like, when you learn driving, the student is driving, but the teacher has the other control. So he can stop. If he finds the student going somewhere and going to hit something, he will put the brakes. So in a sattvic person, not that he doesn't have desires, but they are controlled by his free will, that this is good for me, this is not good for me, this is where I should go. So it's not that he doesn't have desires, but he knows how to regulate his desires and change his desire to purity. So that is the essence of what we have studied in these 5 shlokas, that a choice is ours, whether we want to live a life of sattva, rajas, and tamas, and based on the law of karmas, we will get the same results. And then next week is a very beautiful topic, starting about gunatit, one who has gone beyond gunas, how such a person lives his or her life, and how can you or I also go beyond this prison of gunas and live in freedom of the self, freedom of. So that is the essence of the next few shlokas.
In short, the yardstick used here to measure evolution is the quantity of joy or happiness, peace or bliss experienced by the being.
Yeah, so as Neeru said, you can see that am I experiencing bliss, inner peace?
Things used to bother me.
Things that used to bother me don't bother anymore. I find joy within, then that is the yardstick. Am I progressing? Even somebody, there was a Swamiji who came, Swami Chidananda, and somebody asked him, how can I tell that I am progressing? He says, when things that used to bother you don't bother you anymore, then you know that you're progressing spiritually. So when I have found joy within myself, then that is a sign of progress. So what is health? So far, Bhagavan has told us what is disease. What are the symptoms of disease? What are the signs? Next week, he will tell us what is the medicine for this disease. What is health? How to stay healthy and how to maintain health and how to reach the healthy state. Like when you go to a doctor and he'll diagnose you have diabetes or high blood pressure, and then he'll give you medicine and then bring you back to check if your blood pressure is normal or your blood sugar is normal. So similarly, in spirituality, if we are suffering from the disease of selfishness, laziness, how can we stay with the health of sattva and maintain that? So that we will do next week. We have a few minutes. Anybody has any comments or questions?
No, just to be doing favor to myself, developing more sattvic qualities as much as possible, not for this life, but even for next life. So I just want to compete with my own self and see how it, and these are such beautiful practical examples that Gurudev's commentary and Lord Krishna has given to us to reach to that Gunatit level.
Hariom, Anilji, it is very, very beautifully explained. I was having a lot of difficulty understanding these three things, but I have understood now, and how these three gunas can be related in our life and in everywhere where we see, whether it is in nature or living here or watching somebody. I think it could be related with everything, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas.
Yes.
It's very beautifully explained. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie. So as Auntie said, this is for us to see our life, not to judge others. Oh, that person is very tamasic, that person is rajasic. That is what we do. This is to look within. That's what Bhagavan says. Look within and see, am I living more sattvic, rajasic, or a tamasic life?
No, I was thinking on the same line, how it's just for our own progress and growth, right? Not to judge anybody else. But how can you uplift somebody else, or how you can guide sometimes somebody else, or bring them into this spiritual fold where it may eventually benefit them? How do you coax them? That's what.
I think, first of all, when the children are small, you can guide them. And when but once they are grown up and they have their own life, then you cannot change them. But as Neeru said just now, you can be an example that when they see that you are going on this path and you have changed, it is benefiting you, how you deal with the world, how you deal with others. Is your mind more peaceful? Are you more calm? So by being an example, and if somebody asks, like what my parents used to do at every wedding, anybody's wedding, they would never give rupees. They would give Gurudev's Bhagavad Gita, the red Gita. That was inevitably, they gave that as a wedding gift. They said, with, money, a lot of people are giving 100 rupees, 200. But he said, maybe sometime or the other, this couple will read it. So if you have an opportunity, you give them this kind of knowledge. Otherwise, just, or if somebody asks, what are you doing? You can say, oh, Sunday morning, we are listening to Bhagavad Gita, or this Bhagavad Gita I'm reading, it is benefiting me a lot. And if you want to give a gift, like we have these Mananam series at the mission, which are very general books, which are written by great scholars. So that's how we can do. You cannot change anybody else. They said you can change. That's what even Mahatma Gandhi says, be the change that you want to see in the world. So you change and the world around you will change. You can only change around yourself and just do the best you can. Anything else?
Can I add something?
Hanji,
if you are looking yourself, then you know what you are doing. But as soon as you start looking other people, maybe I can improve so and so. Don't you think then I'm getting ego?
Yes.
That I know what to do and I'm going to improve other people? Right.
Exactly. Yeah. As Neeru said, all we can do for them is pray. Oh, Bhagwan, give them wisdom.
Sadbuddhi do.
Sadbuddhi do. Right. So yeah, no, you're very right, Auntie, because if we think we can change somebody, nobody can change anybody. You can't even change your spouse, your child, you cannot. Ultimately, the person himself or herself has to have this inner voice that they have to improve. You can make the opportunities available, but you can't, like they say, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink until he's thirsty. So when the thirst comes from within, then this knowledge will help. But we can share it, and like if Swamiji's lectures are there, you can send flyers to people, that this is an opportunity to hear a great teacher like that.
We send 500 flyers.
Yeah.
Only 25.
Yeah, we send 500 emails, only 20 people show up, 25, 30. Actually, somebody asked Guruji one time, I think I might have told that in the previous class. He says, why to your lecture only 250 come and to this rock star, like some musician, 5,000? He says, I'm surprised even 250 bhi aate hain. Even 250 come, I'm surprised. How come they are coming? So the point is that this knowledge is so subtle that and not everybody feels the need for it, as I said, because the result is not like you take your child to music lesson, right? And then he can play the violin or the piano. You can do a concert, everybody claps. You take him to Bal Vihar for 12 years, you don't see the result like
the
that.
only thing they see is the shloka pade, sikhe,
Yeah,
and
or
then they will-
right, exactly.
they will
Oh,
come.
right, or if he can chant shlokas, like one of the Bal Vihar children went to India, and his grandfather had arranged a party, and he used to come to our Gita chanting class, and he chanted the entire chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Oh wow, everybody was clapping. But this knowledge, how it has changed the thinking, it's very subtle. It doesn't happen suddenly. So that's what they say. The result is not manifest.
It's not gross.
It's not gross, it's
subtle.
very subtle. So
And
that's
it's
why.
gradual.
And slow and gradual process.
It's unfolding.
I hope I was able to answer the questions that people raised. Okay, thank you all for participating. We'll do the Aarti and the closing prayers. And then next week, we'll start the topic of Gunatit, how we can go beyond gunas, and how does this person who has gone beyond gunas, how does he or she work in the world, and how, so that is like Bhagavan is giving us a goal, that this is the goal we should reach. Om na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kuto yamagnihi tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. O boliye Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagavan ki jai. Arati Shri Chinmaya Sadguru ki Divya Rupa Murati Karuna ki. Arati Sadguru ki. चरणों में उनके शांति समाए, शरणागत की भ्रांति मिटाए, पाप ताप संताप हरण की। आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की। आरती सद्गुरु की। वेद उपनिषद गीता को गाया, धर्म सनातन फिर से जगाया, शुद्ध नीति प्रीति शंकर की। आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की। आरती सद्गुरु की। सिद्ध बाड़ी की तपो भूमि में, नित्य विराजे गुरु हमारे, भक्त हृदय आनंद श्रोत्र की। आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की। आरती सद्गुरु की। आरती सद्गुरु की। बोलिए श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय. We are grateful to Puja Gurudev for bringing this knowledge to us. Everybody please take the Aarti. Thank you very much. We'll do the closing prayer. Kayena vacha manasendriye va buddhyatmana va prakrite svabhava karomi yadya sakalam parasmai Narayanayeti samarpayami. Narayanayeti samarpayami. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah. Sarve santu niramayaha. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu.
ma kaschid dukhabhag bhavet. Om asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha.
Hari Om. Thank you. Hari Om.